Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm one of the professors of clinical oncology at Cairo University Hospital, and I wish I will share with you some of the information about the alpha beta ratio, because I felt that there is a need for understanding the alpha beta ratio and make it as simple and easy as much as I can. Alpha beta ratio is one of the most important subject or topics in radiotherapy, and I think it's very important for any one who is working in the field of radiation oncology to understand what does it mean, how he can use it, and it's very useful in daily practice, especially in when you want to give an equivalent doses, or you want to solve a problem of overdose, or you want to hypofractionate your regime. How can you give the equivalent dose? And it's really useful. And when I started to know about it, I just felt that it's crazy. I mean, it's very complicated, but actually it's simple and straightforward if you understand the idea behind it, and that's it. And that's why I just wanted to share it with you. If you allow me to share this half-an-hour lecture as an introduction for the alpha beta ratio and how you can use it in the second part of the lecture. So what we call it, the cell survival curve. The cell survival curve is one of the most important curves in radiobiology, and every one of us knows about it, and maybe there is no exam that will not include a question in about the cell survival curve. So cell survival curve is very important curve, but I just want to share with you how we created this curve and what's the importance. If you look at the cell survival curve, it's a very simple curve that study or give us an idea about the relationship between the number of surviving cells on the y-axis and the dose we are giving on the x-axis. How we can the survival curve just in a very simple way, without any complication. I can tell you that you can get and buy from any lab some cells. Let's say you go to the lab and ask for sarcoma cells. You can get some melanoma cells. The technology now allow us to create different types of cells using guinea pigs, using rats, or even we can prepare some cells from tumor tissues like glioblastoma tissues, and so on. Just again in a very simple way, if you put 100 cells in a dish with a suitable environment, you would expect the cells to stay alive, and the sign of this life is nothing but replication or producing what we call it colony. What you can see it here in the slide in the form of black spots. So if you inserted or you implanted 100 cells and each cell will start to make its own colony, you may end up by 100 colony. If out of the 100, 90 colonies survived and created, 90 cells survived and created colonies, then you can say that the efficiency of this plate is 90%, because I implanted 100 cells and I ended up by 90 colonies. So 10 cells actually died, and so on. So if the environment is suitable, if nothing is hurting the cells, the cell will survive and will start to duplicate and replicate and cause what we call it colony. Let's say if we implanted the cells and we exposed these dishes to different doses of radiation. So we are studying what? We are studying the effect of the different doses of radiation on the implanted cells. And if you went in any department all over the world. There is a lot of radiobiology labs, and you can see the people holding their dishes and go to the machine to irradiate their dishes, and maybe sometimes they may ask the radiographer to leave the machine and irradiate for them, and the radiographers are very busy and they ask them to come back, and it's almost always a very big problem to take the machine for such experiments. However, in a very simple way, that we have different types of cells, or let's say one type of cells like GBM cells, and we are exposing these GBM cells to different doses of radiation. So 1 gray, another dish one for 2 gray, 4 gray, 6 gray, and so on. And on the x-axis we have the doses, and on the y-axis you have what we call the number of surviving cells. Let's say it's 100 cells. So when you expose the cells to 1 gray, you can see how many colonies created, and then you can put, let's say, there is 90 cells survive, and then at 2 gray there is 80 cells surviving, and so on. 6 gray there is, let's say, 50 cells survived only, and so on. So that you can create what the cell survival curve. The beauty or the interesting part of the cell survival curve is whenever we do, or we try to do, or we try to create a cell survival curve for different types of tissue, they have almost a unique or a common shape. Sorry, they have a common shape, a shape that has an initial straight part and then start to bend. This is one that you can see now. Please look, don't look at densely ionizing one, look at this one. Middle, you see initial straight part followed by a bending part of the curve, and that's why we had to think about it. Why it's like that? Why different types of tissue end up by having the same more or less shape of the cell survival curve? And that's the beauty of the cell survival curve. Bring some tissues, expose them to different doses of radiation. X-axis put your dose, on the y-axis put the number of cells. Try to plot it, you will end up by a common shape of cell survival curve. Before we move from this point, let me tell you why you can see here on the y-axis it's a logarithmic scale, because it's usually a question that may come to your mind. Why they are putting 10 over 0, 10 minus 1, minus 2, and so on? It's simply because if you put a logarithmic scale on the y-axis, you can represent a large group of cells. I mean, if you cannot say 199, 89, 98, and so on, but you can say 10 over like 10, 10 over 3, 10 over 5, 10 over 4, 10 minus, and so on. So you can easily represent a large number of cells. This is number one. The number two is, if you can remember the tiny boxes in the logarithmic scale sheets. If you remember, we had papers called the logarithmic papers, and inside these papers it's divided into squares, and inside each square there is tiny squares as well. So the idea behind using a logarithmic scale is that you can detect any change happening in the number of cells, even if it's a minimal amount, and it can be plotted on the cell survival curve. So the kind of sensitivity for the curve where you can, any changes of cell death can be easily detected by plotting the cell survival curve on a logarithmic scale, y-axis, and that's why we are just a short note about why they are using a logarithmic scale on the y-axis. So back to the curve, whenever we irradiate any types of cells, we get this shape of cells. So we had to understand why this is happening, what factors are affecting this cell survival curve, and why it's more or less the same for most of tissues. If you have any experiment, and not even experiment, if you have any natural phenomena, let's say a radioactive decay, the radioactive decay is representing what? It's representing decay of the radioactive material along the time. So if I try to plot a curve for any radioactive material, I will put on the x-axis the time, and on the y-axis this is starting point, 100% activity, which will start to reduce by time or decrease by time till it reaches a minimum or a plateau. This is something that we know about it. If you looked at if you put it on a logarithmic scale, you may end up by a straight line curve, which is the same idea, the same concept. It's a phenomena. It's an experiment where we are trying to represent it by a curve. And for any curve like this, or cell survival curve, it's very important to understand it clearly by defining which factors are affecting this curve. For example, in the radioactivity curve, the factor will be the time, which is inversely proportional to the time. So the activity is inversely proportional to the time. And the second factor will be the initial activity, or the change in the activity. Yeah. So these are the components, or these are the factors that's affecting a radioactive. This, very similar to this, we had to study in depth which factors is affecting the shape of the curve, why this curve is like that. When they looked at the first part of the curve, they found out there is a direct relationship between the dose we are giving and the effect of radiation in the form of cell killing. So single shot can give you a single cell death, or a direct effect by killing the cell. The second part of the curve, they found the relationship to be effect of radiation is direct proportion to d squared. And let me explain it in more details. I had a game, like a video game, a very interesting video game called The Bloody Day. They give you a gun, and there is a people that move in front of you from the right side to the left side. Let's say a right side door to left side door, and so on, moving from right to left and left to right. And using this gun, you have to hit those people so that you kill them directly or indirectly. How would you do that? If I hit the guy in front of me in his head, he will die immediately. So, and then he will collapse and die because I hit him in a very critical point in his head. If I hit the guy in his arm, he will say, "Aye," but he will not die, and he will continue to move. So I have to hit him again and again so that he will die. So hit him once, then say, "Aye," and then move. But I want to kill him, so I will have to hit him again, two, so that it will end up by death. In a very similar fashion, if the radiation hit the cell in a killing point, and this killing point here is a DNA, and this is a theory. They say that if we are hitting the cell or the DNA in a chromosome with the lesion is the lesion is opposite each other. Let's say here you can see here on the arrow that the chromosome and the two lesions are in front of each other, so repairable is impossible, and the cell will have to die and induce apoptosis. So single hit ended up by death of cells, and this gave us what we call it the linear part of the curve, the straight part of the curve, but not. I will tell you why this word linear. The second part of the curve, we hit the chromosome or the DNA, but in different areas, so let's say away from each other, and that's why the cell were able to repair the damage and continue to survive. If another dose hit the cell, then the cell may not be able to repair this damage and it will eventually die. So now, when we studied the relationship between the death of cell, or the effect of radiation, and the dose we are giving, it was a direct relationship. Effect is directly proportional to the dose we are giving. And as any number in the world, it's usually, there is one that you can put it above it, and that's why they call it linear relationship. It's not squared, so it's linear, it's 1, so effect of radiation is directly proportional to D. In the second part of the curve, the effect of radiation is directly proportional to D squared, and this is very important. Please, it's D squared, not double the dose, which means that if I'm talking about 3 gray, I'm talking about 3, not times 2, but it's 3 squared, which means 9. So in this part of the curve, the effect of radiation is mainly through a quadratic relationship. What does it mean quadratic? It's simply D squared. In this part of the curve, the relationship is a linear relationship. It's the effect of radiation is directly proportional to D, which is a linear relationship, and it's D only, not D squared. This is what we call it, that repairable damage. Cell can still repair damage, so that you need more dose to kill the cell. This type of cell, single hit equal to death. And please remember the game. When I hit the guy in his head, he will die immediately. If I hit him in his arm, he will say, "Oh!" Then he will continue moving. Then I have to hit him again. So remember this, please. And if you remember, usually if you correlate any information with some fancy form of imagination, you will never forget it. So let's put this into the context of. I tell you now, in the first part of the curve, the effect of radiation is directly proportional to dose, D. This is what we just heard about. And the second part of the curve is mainly affected, or the second part of the curve is under the control of what we call it, effect of radiation is directly proportional to D squared. I think we agreed together, yes? In any mathematical equation, if I tell you, if you want to remove a proportion sign, if you want to remove this sign, and you want to add equal sign, you have to add what we call it a constant. This is a basic thing in math. This is a mathematical rule that we all know about it. So if I tell you I want to remove in any proportional relationship, you want to put an equal sign, you have to add a constant. So would you mind if I call this constant, so it will be like that, yeah, E squared, and would you mind if I remove this word constant and I call it beta? You can call it theta, you can call it gamma, doesn't matter, but they choose the word beta. And on this side of the equation, they removed the proportion sign and they add a constant and they call it alpha. And don't tell me why. This is what they choose. I mean, they choose alpha constant and beta constant. So let's make things more complicated now. So now, effect of radiation is directly proportional to alpha D in the first part of the curve. And the effect of radiation is equal to beta, which is a constant, D squared in the second part of the curve. What is E? It's cell death, yes? What is E here? its effect, yes, it's cell death. So what would you mind if I tell you to use this phrase? In the first part of the curve, the alpha component of cell killing is dominating. The main type of cell death in the first part of the curve is alpha component. And whenever you hear this statement without understanding what does mean alpha, you never understand anything. Simply, what does it mean alpha? Why alpha component? What does it mean alpha component of cell killing? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just a constant. And now you can understand that the effect of radiation in the first part of the curve is just in direct proportion to D, and we removed the proportion sign and we added the equal sign and we had to put a constant, and we call this constant as alpha. And in the second part of the curve, you had to remove the proportion sign. You have to add you had to remove the proportion sign to put an equal sign, and we had to put a constant, and we call this constant beta. And then they just called cell death in the first part of the curve, which is the straight part of the curve, as the alpha component of cell killing, just to hurt us and just to make it more complicated. But now you understand what this means. And the second part of the curve is under the control, or the relationship is a quadratic relationship. Use this large, bulky, fancy words now. You can play with it. The first part of the curve is a linear relationship, is a linear cell killing, is an alpha component of cell killing. And please repeat with me. The second part of the curve, it's the beta component of cell killing, is a quadratic relationship. What does it mean, quadratic? It's E, directly proportional to D. No, directly proportional to D squared. So it's a quadratic relationship. It's a quadratic component of cell killing. This is in a simple way. It will never be simpler than that, please. Now, coming to the most important part of the lecture. Please concentrate. I have just less than 5 minutes and I will close this session. Please, please concentrate. Now, raise your arm up and look to your arm on the right side. The first part of your arm represented by the humerus, or let's say the deltoid and the biceps muscle. And imagine with me that this straight part of the curve is the alpha component of the cell killing, or the cell death in this part of your arm is a direct proportion between the effect and direct proportion. The effect of radiation, is direct proportion to the dose in this first part of your arm, or for you the curve. And then look at the forearm, and this forearm will represent the beta component of cell killing, or the bending part of the curve, or where the effect of radiation is not directly related, is not direct proportion to D, but proportion to D squared. So you have two components of your arm. One is the alpha component of the cell survival curve, and the second part, which is the forearm, is the beta component of cell killing. So what's happening at your elbow? Please put your left hand index finger on your elbow. This is a point. This is a point. Repeat with me. This is a point where the alpha component of cell killing will be equal to the beta component of cell killing, because the elbow is not belonging to the humerus, it's not belonging to the forearm, it's a combination between both, yes? The elbow is formed by the junction between the humerus and the forearm bones, which is the ulna and radius, yes? So the elbow is not related to the alpha component of cell killing, it's not related to the beta component of cell killing. The elbow is a point on the cell survival curve. Please repeat with me. The elbow is a point on the cell survival curve where the alpha component of cell killing is equal to the beta component of cell killing. Let's study this point, elbow point, in depth. So at this point, repeat with me, alpha component of cell killing is equal to the beta component of cell killing, which means that alpha D at this particular point is equal to beta D square. Yes, it's exactly because the effect of both components at this point are equal. The contribution of the humerus to the elbow is equal to the contribution of the forearm to the elbow. They are both doing what we call it the elbow. The same thing, there is a point on the cell survival curve. Close your eye and imagine with me. There is a point on the cell survival curve where the curve will start to bend. Is it a point related to the junction point? And this junction point is related to the second part of the curve or the first part of the curve. It's not related to either. It's a separate point. It's a crucial point where there is a bending of the curve, where the curve will change its shape, will change the effect. The effect is happening here. There is a different effects happening here. The alpha component effect, then a change at a certain point will start the beta component of cell killing. And at this point, the alpha component of cell killing equal to the beta component of cell killing. And if you understand that, everything now will be very, very simple. And please come to the next point. Here, look at the slides. The alpha D equal to beta D squared. Where is this happening? It's exactly at a point on the cell survival curve where the alpha component of cell killing equal to beta component of cell killing. Let's move the beta under the alpha as any equation. If you move the beta under the alpha, the D will go with the D square, and this is just mathematics. So the alpha over beta, or what we call it now, the alpha beta ratio equal to D. From this simple equation, I can give you two more information. First is, what's the definition of the alpha beta ratio? Whenever I tell you the definition of the alpha beta ratio, and please, never say definition of alpha beta ratio is a ratio. Never say that, please. It's a very common mistake in the exam. Whenever I ask someone what's the definition of the alpha beta ratio, he starts by saying it's the ratio. Come on, guys, how can you define a ratio? I'm asking you what's the ratio. You have to tell me something different, yes? So from what you can see here in front of you in the slide, D is equal to alpha beta ratio. Would you mind if I tell you that alpha beta ratio is the dose? Yes, it's D. It's D, definitely. It's a dose. It's a dose on the cell survival curve where the alpha component of cell killing equal to the beta component of cell killing. And I will come back to this point immediately now. But let me answer a second question for you. If I asked you what's the unit for the alpha beta ratio, looking at the equation D equal alpha beta ratio. So I tell you the unit of the alpha beta ratio should be the same unit of any dose. You will tell me that the unit for alpha beta ratio will be gray. Excellent, it will be gray. So now we have two important points. The first point is the definition of the alpha beta ratio. So if I tell you what's the definition of alpha beta ratio, please repeat with me. It's the dose, it's the dose, it's the dose. So it's never a ratio. It's the dose, it's the dose, it's the dose, it's the dose at which the alpha component of cell killing is equal to the beta component of cell killing. Of the alpha beta ratio, it's gray. So now looking at the cell survival curve, if I tell you now I have a tissue in my pocket and now I plot a curve. On the x-axis I'm putting my doses, and on the y-axis I'm putting the number of cells. And then we start to plot the curve together. 1, 2, 3, 4, point. We ended up by this curve. Then we need to define where is the alpha beta ratio. The straight part of the curve, you can see it here. They extrapolated this, and then on the curve they can measure the distance here. If the alpha component of cell killing, because this part of the curve will extend, it doesn't mean that. This is a very important point. If I'm telling you that the first part of the curve, the dominating effect is the alpha effect, or the alpha component of cell killing, this alpha component of cell killing will still continue, but by the time at a certain crucial point it will not be dominating, because the beta component is starting to appear. Can you understand this point? That's why they are extrapolating or extending the straight part of the curve like this, and then they are measuring this area, which is represent the alpha component of cell killing, and here will start the beta component of cell killing. Whenever the alpha component of cell killing equal to the beta component of cell killing, you just have to extend your line down to the x-axis and read. But where is it? It's 8. Great. Excellent. So now I can tell you that the alpha beta ratio for this tissue from this experiment, from this curve, is 8. Let's tell you I have another tissue, but when I plotted the cell survival curve, it has like this shape, for example. So we started by the straight part of the curve is like this. And then we measured the alpha component of cell killing and the beta component of cell killing, and we looked down there, and then it came like 5. So the alpha beta ratio for this particular tissue is 5, and so on. Let's do this. This game is a very nice game. So this is a tissue in my pocket, and I want you to tell me what's the alpha beta ratio for this particular tissue. Then you started to plot. On one y curve, you put your survival cells, or the cells on the y curve, and on the x-axis on the y-axis, sorry, and on the x-axis you put the dose. And then plotting the curve, then you have to see where is the alpha component. It's the straight part of the curve. Straight part of the curve equal to the, oh, sorry, it's a very bad drawing, I'm sorry for that. So it's very difficult to do, but you can understand the idea, yeah? So now we are looking at this area, and we look at this area, let's say it's here, and we try to see where exactly the alpha component of cell killing, where it will be equal to the beta component of cell killing. Then push your line down and read, let's say it's 20, and so on and so on. So now you know what does it mean, alpha beta ratio. Alpha beta ratio is nothing. Alpha is a constant, beta is a constant, but it is a point, it is a dose at which the direct hit cell killing is equal to the beta, the d squared cell killing, quadratic cell killing. And the importance of this, how we are going to use it, is coming next lecture. Please stay with me, and please read it carefully. If you understand this, you will never ever forget it. Please start to repeat it and hear it again, and hopefully useful. Thank you.